Welcome to College Football Addiction. Oregon fans, today we are breaking down your schedule and I'm giving you the insight on how you should bet your money in our Ducks preview presented by BetUS. I don't know if there's a team in the country that there's more hype around right now than Oregon, whether that's excited hype, whether that's hating hype, whether that is people accusing Phil Knight's money of being this, that, or the other. No matter what, Oregon is one of the most talked about teams. When you look at the two teams that everyone's talking about the most when it comes to conference realignment teams that have landed. I know it's Florida State, Clemson looking to land, but when you look at teams that have landed, it is Oregon in the Big Ten and it's Texas in the SEC. But everybody's excitement is about Texas making the SEC championship and maybe even winning the conference in their very first year. I think all of that excitement is a little bit misplaced and should probably be out west. Texas has a tough schedule, and we certainly would love for you to go check out our Texas preview where we break down wins and losses. But, man, I think the way this sets up for Oregon is pretty nice this year, and if you want to make some money with me over on BetUS, you certainly can do so. We'll tell you more about them in a moment. Oregon starts out with a pretty easy road, and no games are easy, and Dan Lanning will not have his team taking any team lightly. But, man, you got to like the way that this sets up for Oregon. Idaho week 1 is a win. Boise State week 2 is a win. They go 2-0 to start the year at home. Then you get a rivalry game super early. A lot of people may be used to playing rivalry games late in the year. Here's one in week 3. Oregon State on the road. A game that you certainly cannot take lightly, but a team that is maybe going to be in the top 2 of the Pac-12 or what's left of the Pac-12, but maybe that's just by default. I'm not even sure if they're the best team that's out there between them and Washington State. A team that got decimated by the portal. DJ Uyunglele in Tallahassee now, Damian Martinez in Miami now, and other members of their team gone as well. I don't know how Oregon State even keeps this close, though it is a rivalry game. I think that Oregon gets the win here in a rivalry game. They go to 3-0. At UCLA, another Big Ten new addition, another new member to the Big Ten. UCLA comes to town. They go to UCLA. They go to Southern California to take on UCLA here. I don't know that UCLA is ready for this quite yet. I think they're a team that could maybe be dangerous later on in the year, but early in the year, I think this is an incredibly tough task to ask UCLA to win this game, and I don't think they're able to do it. I think Oregon gets to 4-0 with relative ease. Again, they got to travel south, but man, staying on that West Coast is super helpful. That's one of UCLA's bigger advantages in the Big Ten, I think, is teams having to take that West Coast trip. And I think Oregon gets the win here. They get to 4-0. And then their first matchup against a traditional Big Ten team. They play Michigan State at home. Again, this is tough for Michigan State. Obviously, a lot of newness at that program. You're going to have to be traveling west, and I just don't know that they have the horses to keep up right now with Dylan Gabriel and that squad. I think Michigan State is another win for Oregon. They get to 5-0 to start the year. They are a top 3 team to start the season, and they stay up there in that top 3 after 5 wins in very convincing fashion. It would surprise me if any of these games were within 10 points. I think Oregon wins them all very convincingly, and they are rolling before they get to a little bit tougher stretch in the year. A tough stretch for the Ducks, but before we talk about that, let me give a little bit of love to BetUS. The best thing about these previews to me is that if you love or you hate the prediction, you can go to BetUS right now and wager on what you think is going to happen. I think you think I'm too high, you think I'm too low on a certain team, well, go put your money where your mouth is, like I am over on BetUS, where they have a 125% deposit match on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. BetUS has the best customer service in the game, and their website and mobile website are extremely easy and very user-friendly. I appreciate BetUS for their support, and go lock in your bet right now for Oregon's over or under on wins. Game of the year, I think, and it really, I think there's 2 games of the year. One of them's in the SEC and one of them's here in the Big Ten. Game of the year in the SEC is, to me, when Tuscaloosa welcomes Georgia to town and you get that Alabama-Georgia rematch. And then in the Big Ten, this might be the actual game of the year. It's a 2-3 matchup based on the AP preseason poll, and it may stay that way by the time we get to it. Ohio State comes to town at Oregon, and this is going to be a heck of a game. I'm leaning Oregon right now. I won't go into the whole thing and then save the prediction for the end. We'll just give you the goods. So if you enjoy that, Oregon fans, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. But yeah, I think I lean Oregon here. I think Ohio State. And this is no shot at Oregon. I think Ohio State's the most talented team in the country. I think they're probably pound for pound, probably more talented than Oregon. I think QB matters a whole lot, though. And I think Oregon has the QB matchup in their favor. I think they have the travel matchup in their favor. Ohio State having to go to the West Coast, play at Oregon, a tough place to play. If this was Ohio State, I'd probably end up picking them. But I also think, and I'm not a Ryan Day hater. I'm not one that's like, oh, he's going to get fired if he doesn't beat, this, that, or the other. But I do think that Lanning is the coaching, has the coaching advantage in this too. I think Oregon gets this win. I think they get to 6-0 before they take on a ton of traditional Big Ten teams, which are going to be super physical. I think they're going to start to wear them down. But I do think that against Ohio State, give me Oregon in the win here. And to me, this is their toughest game of the year. The toughest game of the year that they're going to play is against Ohio State, and I think they get the win here. They have a long way to go, and they've got a lot more wins to get. But essentially, I think they lock up their spot in the Big Ten championship by getting this win. Now, they drop to Purdue, they drop to Michigan, they drop to Maryland later. Yes, absolutely, they could end up losing that spot. But by getting this, I think they have the inside track to the Big Ten championship, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. They have to go on the road to Purdue. I was in West Lafayette, just this summer. Beautiful campus, beautiful place. My kids played in the fountains. We had a wonderful time. And I like a lot of the things Purdue does. I just don't think it's going to be enough. As beautiful as the area is, beautiful as the campus is, Oregon gets the win on the road at Purdue. Same thing next week. They welcome Illinois back home. They get Illinois there in Eugene. And Illinois is not on the same planet as Oregon right now. They're not close to the kind of program that it is. Oregon gets the win. They're 8-0. And I think they play their second toughest game of the year. I have this as slightly easier, even though it's on the road. I have this slightly easier than I had the Ohio State game, but they go to Michigan. If you've already watched our Michigan preview, or if we haven't even released that yet, which it is coming soon, so make sure you're subscribed and you can check out what we think about them. I don't think that Michigan is going to be quite able to keep up. Michigan lost so much last year. I think Oregon is one of the best teams in the country. I expect really, really good things out of them. And I think Michigan is going to have a tough time. Now, it is in the Big House, and it is one of the last 4 games of the year, so you know it's going to be cold. Eugene gets pretty cold too. I don't think that's as big of an advantage for Michigan as it would be maybe for some other teams, like a USC coming up there in November. So I think Oregon gets the win here too. They get to 9-0 with 3 very winnable games down the stretch to go. They got Maryland next at home. I think Maryland's on the upswing. I think that they're turning things around there. I don't think they're quite there yet, and I think Oregon gets to their 10th win, and then a couple of W teams, right? At Wisconsin and then Washington at home. That at Wisconsin game is certainly not one you can take lightly. That's a physical game in the Big Ten that Oregon hasn't played Pac-12 competition that has been this physical, and the week after week after week grind is going to be a lot. I'm not going to tell you that this is going to be easy, but I think they get the win at Wisconsin to get to 11-0, and then they get a rematch against Washington. They lost to Washington twice last year, certainly games that Oregon wishes they had back. Washington decimated by players leaving, whether they were going to Alabama with DeBoer, whether they're in the NFL right now with the Atlanta Falcons. Washington's going to have to rebuild a little bit. I don't think they're ready quite yet. There's a little bit of a rivalry there. Certainly after last year, Washington will think they can win any game. Oregon will want to beat them. This game being at Oregon gives me pretty good confidence that the Ducks end up getting the win. Now, here's the thing. I hate predicting a team to go 12-0. I can't stand it. That is unheard of. I used to be able to maybe do it with Alabama, maybe do it with Georgia a couple of years ago. I don't even have Georgia going 12-0 this year. I certainly don't have Alabama going 12-0 this year. I don't have Ohio State going 12-0 this year. As you can see, I got them losing at least this one, and so check out Ohio State prediction as well. But 12-0 record, they make the Big Ten championship in their first year. They're a favorite in that Big Ten championship. And I've got them losing a rematch to Ohio State in the title game. Now, don't cuss me out, Oregon fans. I just predicted you go 12-0, and then I've got you at 12-1 now, going to the playoff as a 5 seed. But I think the same reason that I had Ohio State losing on the road. This is back in Indy. It's much closer to Ohio State. Travel, an issue for Oregon, have to come across the country to play in the Big Ten title game. I think if these two teams play twice this year, if they play 3 times this year, if they play twice, it's going to go 1-1. Maybe you'd rather lose to Ohio State early and beat them in the championship game, so you have the Big Ten champion. I don't know. Certainly think Oregon could go 13-0, could beat Ohio State twice, but I have a tough time seeing Ohio State losing twice, and rematches are super, super tough. So if you're an Oregon fan, cheer for somebody else to get in there over Ohio State so that you don't have to see them in the rematch. I like Oregon against anybody else, even if it is a rematch with Michigan. I like Oregon getting a win against anybody else in the Big Ten championship. But I've got him going 12-1, a loss to Ohio State in a rematch in the Big Ten title game, and then a 5 seed in the playoffs. I think they're the top non-automatic qualifier in the playoffs. There will be a group of 5 qualifier, but I think they're the top team that's not in the top 4. They're a 5 seed. They get a home game in Eugene, and I'll tell you this. It's not the worst to get the 5 seed and maybe be playing Liberty again, or maybe be playing Tulane or somebody like that, and you kind of get a little bit of a tune-up game at home. You have less rust before you play that 4 seed later. I don't think that – I know you'd be disappointed with getting that 5 seed and not the Big Ten championship. I'm telling you, that 5 seed is not a bad thing. That 5 seed is not at all a bad thing. You should welcome it. You should be happy. You're not going to be happy about losing the title game if you do. But getting that 5 seed is a good thing. Your program's going to enjoy it because you're going to get a home playoff game, and the first 4 don't get that. Your AD is going to enjoy it because it's more revenue for the program. Your team's going to enjoy it because they're going to beat the heck out of that 12 seed group of 5 automatic qualifier, and you're going to be better off for it. I think a lot of times that 5 seed is going to beat that 4 seed, and then again you get to play the 4 seed, who is going to be one of the worst teams. It's probably going to be the Big 12 champion if you think about it. Whereas if you were the number 1 or 2 seed, you're then playing an ACC champion or an SEC at large. You're playing somebody in there. I think it's getting that 5 seed is a steal. And probably why they're renegotiating the way the playoff works, because getting the 5 seed is kind of a good deal. You get to play the group of 5 champion, and then you get to play the Big 12 champion, and Oregon ain't losing either one of those. And you're automatically in the semifinal. It's a good spot to be. I'm not saying the 1 spot wouldn't be a good spot. Obviously, that'd be great too. But that 5 seed's not bad, especially if you're an Oregon fan that likes to go to games. Oregon fans, don't hate me for predicting you to lose 1 game. But do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you guys for joining us on College Football Addiction.